Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass,
my phone.
kick back and relax. It's better on draft.
Welcome, everybody, to the Michigan Beer Series, episode number 38. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. It is Friday, May 5th. We are going to be off the next 2 weeks, folks. We are going to be at the Traverse City Beer Festival for the Michigan Brewers Guild next week, the 12th, followed by the World Expo of Beer, the 19th and 20th, over in Frankenmuth. So come say hi, come see us. We'll probably have some spare tokens to give away to make your life a little bit easier, but let's go around. I know Wendy's not going to be here today, and I know Nick will be here whenever he gets in. So Dan, what are you drinking?
What's going on? So today, since we're going a different route today, I've got my own Arizona Orange Blossom honey mead that I made back in 2021. And if that's not enough, I've got the trusty vodka soda to go with it.
What vodka are you drinking these days?
Stoli.
Still
Like 99% of the time, yeah.
For myself, I have a nice hop tea from Hop Lark with the it's a caffeine less tea, so it's the tea is silent series is what they call it. I also have a Missouri Loves Company, that is the Missouri Brewers Guild alt beer that they made, and I'm going to be finishing the night with a Maine Beer Co. Mean Old Tom. Got a nice little bottle there. Been hitting Toledo a few times over the past few months or so and picking up a couple bottles every single time. But as he did join us, Nick, what's going on? What are you drinking? Nick, you're muted. Congratulations. Welcome to 2023.
I hate this thing, man.
But you sound so nice.
Can't we just be in like a normal studio again so I can not forget about my darn microphone for once?
That studio doesn't exist anymore.
I know it doesn't exist anymore. Right.
And getting you to show up at 7:15 is hard enough.
I know.
If I'm getting you inside a studio at a specific time.
Yeah, I know, right? Kids. Yeah, 2-year-old. Started off with a Shiner Bock, and then from the Alchemist, their dark lager will be on deck.
Perfect. Well, with us for the Michigan Beer Series is quite an interesting guest because we're really, really excited to have them on. The reason for that is that they're coming out with a lot of new products this year that I'm excited about, including the rebirth of a brand that we lost. I don't know if it was during COVID, after COVID, before COVID, but we'll probably get into it a little bit. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves, tell us who you are and what you do and where you are.
I'm Kerri from Be Nektar, and we are in our production facility.
I'm Brad, Kerri's husband and chief bottle washer. Just hanging out.
Well, we thank you so much for coming. Obviously, Kerri's been on our show before and kind of knows how it goes. The show's a little bit different these days. We're a little bit more structured, less drunk than normal.
Less drunk. I like that you said less drunk.
Yes. Not absolutely not drunk, but less drunk. But Brad, why don't you give us a little bit of background about you and Be Nektar as a whole?
Sure. Well, I've been homebrewing since 1998. Like, I think it was literally a week after I turned 21. I had already been getting into these like Detroit area bars with my roommates who were in a band. So I was kind of drinking like lots of European beers and stuff back then. I remember getting into this around the world in 80 beers list, kind of club. So I really got into beers early on. And so I started brewing, brewed for about 10 years before Kerri lost her job and was like, fuck it, let's start a meadery. Now, of course, there's a weird transition between when I was like brewing beer to all of a sudden going to mead. After brewing a lot of beer, I realized there's all these other things in the back of the book, like mead. I hadn't tried yet. I tried making mead one day and it sucked. So that pissed me off to the point where I just obsessed about it for a couple of years. And we did a toast at our wedding with a giant 3-liter, double magnum of mead that I made, and jokingly said, yeah, maybe we'll start a meadery. And about a year later, Kerri got laid off. And then we decided, well, let's just go all in. Let's see what happens. Let's start a meadery. So, that's kind of how that all started.
What was the first mead that you guys made at Bee Nectar that you were selling to the public?
When we first opened, we actually had a lot of meads, but our best seller out of all of that was the Wildberry Pyment, which is a Shiraz with honey and then strawberry, blackberry, blueberry. But we were also doing one, probably the only one that we still make today, which is now called Episode 13, bourbon barrel aged traditional mead. And we approached that kind of like a beer would be approached. Like, got like mostly your base honey and then like that specialty honey. So we use orange blossom and buckwheat.
Now, prior to you guys purchasing, if I'm not mistaken, you guys purchased the equipment of the WAB, correct? The Wildwood Avenue Brewers?
It's like on loan.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been friends with the owner there for a while. And, during COVID, I think we'd go on these power walks, like couldn't go to the mall. So we just mall walking through Ferndale, and somehow just came up with the idea. It's like, hey, we're still doing production. We had already hired the brewer. It's like, let's just bring the brew house over to our place and then we'll make your beer. And, it seemed like a logical idea at the time.
But you've been making beer since Bee Nectar has been open, correct? Because I'm going to be honest and not to fanboy out a little bit, but if you've listened to a lot of the early episodes of the show, that coffee brown is easily still one of my favorite beers I've ever had. I yearn to see it every time I walk in there.
Thank you. It's just one of those recipes. I didn't make that recipe, so I haven't really gone back to it. I guess I should. But yeah, we got our brewing license sometime around 2012, but it was kind of just as a way to be able to make just something unique for a festival or something for our tap room, which really wasn't even much of a tap room at that time. So we didn't really take beer that seriously because getting the equipment for brewing, the brew house and everything, is a much bigger investment than starting the meadery. So yeah, not until like last summer, we finally got the WAB's equipment over here and brewed the first batch in October. So it's pretty recent.
Before I pass it over to Dan, I guess the follow-up question of that is what can we expect with the beer that you're making now? I know that you guys have a new name just for the brewery part. What's going to be the future of this brand of beer?
We're going to wait and see if I can actually brew good beer. I think that's going to be it. And that's probably not the best suggestion from a business perspective for most people. It's like, hey, go and borrow this equipment and spend some money, set it all up, and then figure out if you can brew. But that's just kind of how we approach things. We're not even really working on any brand, like our own brand of beer right now. We're just focused on trying to dial in the WAB's beer for them. And in doing so, I feel like I'll kind of learn my wax on, wax off, and, feel like I actually know what I'm doing. It's like cooking in somebody else's kitchen. You ever go and visit somebody? And Jake, our Zoom just got cut off.
No, you're still there.
Oh, well, we can't see anything. Well, okay. I don't know if that matters. This might be more interesting if we can't see.
I mean, you just need to hear us, really.
That's true. But I mean, you might make a funny face or something. I don't know.
I mean, I do make a lot of faces on this show. I do have a very vocal face, if I will. But
when Ken is surprised, he'll actually make it very, very clear with his facial expression.
Yeah, see, I can't miss that. I don't want to miss that. There, we got our video back.
Perfect. All right. Dan, it's on to you.
Yeah, so first off, shout out to episode 13. That's a great mead. I got to have it one of the last times I was out in Michigan. I can't remember when, but barrel-aged mead always hits the spot. Another follow-up to the WAB. Are you going to be sending the beer over to their location? I know they're selling beer out of there. At least when I was there last, they're selling PBR and stuff out of the bar at this point.
Yeah, they're a
Is it going to be?
So they can sell all kinds of other stuff. But since COVID, the WAB hasn't been brewing their own beer. And then the other downside is that they have another restaurant right across the street that, because of Michigan laws, they couldn't even sell their other restaurant their own beer. So now with this arrangement, all of their locations will be able to have the WAB beer.
Excellent. Are you going to sell it out of your location as well, or is it just
we've got it on tap here. I mean, it's like, we brew a batch, we pull a couple kegs for us, and then the rest goes to them. And then we worked out distribution recently. So the whole idea is like, as they're building up momentum and stuff for themselves, reopening the WAB again, we're going to basically take whatever we don't go through in right off the bat and put it into distribution so we can do more batches.
Okay, excellent. Now, I want to go back to your early days. You said you started brewing beer initially, then moved on to mead and had a hard time and it was coming out bad. Talk to us a bit about what you found out about that. I did a similar thing. Started with beer, decided one day, because I love mead so much, as you can see, I'm sitting here drinking my own, that I really wanted to do that instead of beer.
Oh, by the way, then, if you're going to do that, stop calling it honey mead.
I was trying to say, I was Arizona. I was trying to say it's from the honey's from Arizona.
Oh, I gotcha.
That is where it was coming from.
Sorry,
this is just your basic
pick on you on your own show.
Yeah.
It's like here,
totally all right.
And honey mead and all this stuff.
Yeah, I was trying to say it's Arizona orange blossom honey is what I was going for.
We're never getting invited back, are we?
Yeah.
Well, come on my show, condescend me, bitch.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah. Anyways, talk to us about why you sucked at making mead. It sounds like you weren't very good.
It's so easy to suck at making mead. Sucking at making mead is probably the most natural thing a human can do.
Interesting. Yeah. I see a lot of people say that. In fact, there is at least one other person here, not named Dan or Nick, that have had a hard time making beer thinking it didn't come out good. Why do you think it's harder? Why is it so easy to suck? Because I thought the process of making mead is so much easier than making a beer.
It is, but the fermentation isn't. The mixing, the brew day is absolutely easier, especially if you switch to metric. And I'll have a whole lecture for that. So anyway, it's all about nutritional, balance for the yeast and just making sure that they're happy because, you're basically just giving them Cocoa Puffs and expecting them to live to 95, and that just doesn't work. Not for kids, not for yeast. It's not a good idea. So, the thing is, like everybody doing seltzer now is like coming to the realization that like, oh, you can't just throw a bunch of sugar and water and mix it up, throw yeast in and get something that tastes good. So we had to kind of learn that, the hard way before, I don't want to say before the internet, but there was like very few forums on the internet. There was only like maybe the appendix of a book on it, not a whole lot.
Yeah, there isn't a lot of information out there just because there aren't as many people out there actively making it, I think.
There are now, but keep in mind, when I really got into this, when I got obsessed with mead, it was like end of 2004, beginning of 2005, something like that. So it was a very, very different world then for mead.
Now, talk to us a bit about your location. You're not in downtown Ferndale. You're not even kind of close to it. You're kind of close. Kind of on the other side of the railroad tracks, basically, is where you're at. Talk to us a bit about how that's affected you. Do people have a hard time finding you? Are they reluctant to come in? Just talk to us a bit about how that works.
I don't think they are as much anymore. I think in our very first facility, it was in the same building that we're in now, but it was in like the far corner and it was dark and Ferndale was kind of just up and coming.
We're like at 8.5 miles outside Detroit.
People were definitely afraid at the beginning, but it grew slowly, I think grassroots style, and people started coming out. Now we're a destination, so if you want to find us, you can. It really isn't that hard, but in the early days,
everybody's got a map
harder.
now on their phone.
Yeah.
We don't have to print out MapQuest directions anymore.
MapQuest directions. Oh, jeez.
Oh, big throw at you.
Oh, man.
Right? I got to print out these directions and go on my road trip. Go find that meat.
Now,
well, we wanted low rent because when we started, the original business plan, which is a joke because there really wasn't a business plan, was just going to be a night and weekend side business, kind of like if you decided to make sock puppets and sell them on Etsy. It's not like you're going to go get investors and, a second mortgage on the house, right? So the very, very first facility, we're like, well, we don't want to be downtown. We both had by this time, Kerri had a full-time job. And we're like, well, let's just get some cheap industrial space. It was like $500 a month. We don't want to have people really show up anyway. That wasn't our plan. Then I got laid off. And then we said, well, I guess this is what we're doing. And go. Oh, and we had a 3-month-old baby too.
Even better.
Yeah,
keep it interesting.
It's helped us because it's like, think about like some kung fu movie. If they don't actually train hard when they finally get into that battle, they don't know what the hell's going on. I like all that early shit that we went through made COVID, not so horrible.
Now, something I always like to ask, because mead has a really good advantage that you can ship much easier because of it being considered wine versus beer. What's your distribution like through mail order throughout the U.S.? Do you see a lot of it, or what's the situation there?
I think that I'd still like to see a lot more, but we have we got 20 states. And I think because we also have distribution in a lot of those areas, there's only a few states that don't have our wholesaler distribution. So people can still go to the store and get it, but they don't get all the specialty stuff, the small batch. So if you want Zombie Killer, you can go to a store or you can order it online. But we've got, we just did episode 13 variants yesterday for May the 4th. And so those are only available in the tap room or on our direct-to-consumer site. So we've got, a pretty decent footprint there.
Now, something I just noticed, I'm actually taking a look at what I could order right now. I noticed you make a prickly pear. Let me go back to it here. The prickly pear, kill all the golfers.
Well, yes.
Prickly pear is typically something you only see out where I'm at here in Arizona. What made you decide to go that route using prickly pear for this?
Well, the funny thing is prickly pear has been a part of our, recipe list since day one. It was the Complete Joy of Homebrewing was the book I was reading. And then the appendix section, Charlie Papazian, godfather of homebrewing and all that, he wrote this eloquent, poetic, it's not even a recipe, but nowadays it would be somebody's food blog that they'd write about their grandma's Lebanese garlic dip, right? And it's like, where's the fucking recipe? Just give me the recipe, so that's kind of what he wrote in this book. So
pretty much like any recipe you find online, there's a whole novel.
Yeah. So that's what this recipe was, a cactus pear mead. So in my head, the greatest thing in all of the world to drink is a cactus pear mead. So it's always just been something available, something in our heads. And we started making this Arnold Palmer inspired mead called Kill All the Golfers. And we would order the tea from, these, tea companies that can sell us 200 pounds of tea kind of thing. And we were looking at their catalog and they have a cactus pear tea where it's dried cactus pears in the tea blend and stuff. So that's actually where the cactus pear comes from, is actually part of the tea.
Oh, awesome. Did not know
a good rambling answer, right?
No, it's a great answer because a lot of people don't even hear about prickly pear if they're not living out in this part of the country. So it's always really interesting to see that coming from another location. One final question, I'm going to toss it over to Nick. You guys, between you and Schramm's, are I'd say two of the biggest 3 meaderies in the country, at least in my opinion. Schramm's, of course, everyone's going to say, along with Superstition out here. Do you feel the pressure to keep up with the competition like that, or what's your view on that?
I mean, sometimes, but I think it's probably in my mind more like being a band. There's plenty of bands and music out there. We're not going to be the only one. We've got our style, we've got our vibe, and we do what we do. And sometimes, the Beatles might get influenced by Pink Floyd and Abbey Road and go, oh shit, they're doing this thing called Dark Side of the Moon. And, so we're always kind of influenced, I think, by what everybody else is doing. But I don't think it's a pressure other than maybe oh, that's really great. I want to make that. How can, if I can't make something I want to make, that's really the only pressure I feel, I guess.
I think we put just the pressure on ourselves to constantly improve on things or, get more offerings that like we enjoy, that other people would enjoy. I think the pressure's on ourselves, for us, by us.
I think when we do try, like, you know, I'm not saying we've never tried to like evaluate the rest of the market or anything, but I think that there's more, we don't really do this for the win, I guess, if that makes sense. Like, we do it for the fun. We do it because we can work together. You know, our son's going to start working here this summer. Like, I think that's more important than anything, you know? And yeah. So like, I think we just said, like, we don't want that pressure. We got to figure out, like, what kind of lives do we want? And, you know, obviously we've got to make stuff that people like.
Yeah, I get it. That's a great answer. Nick, I'll pass it over to you.
Kind of a follow-up to Dan's question before I dive into my one or two questions. Keeping up with, like, the band analogy is a great example. There's always going to be others that do similar or maybe slightly different. You guys have been around for a while, especially in Michigan. What do you guys do different now in 2023 that you did back in 2008 when you guys opened up the facility? Like, what is one thing that you do, like, night and day difference that you don't do anymore when you first started?
I don't cry as much.
It feels like everything, because like 2008 to now is so night and day.
Nobody should ever start a business like we did, ever. I don't care whether it's a meadery or a fucking restaurant or an accounting firm. Nobody should ever start a business the way we did. So I think absolutely everything that we do is different, because now we're finally like catching up to the kind of capital we should have had when we first started. And so we're not constantly scrambling to buy that thing that we knew we needed, but we couldn't afford at the time. You know, there was, you know, if you've ever been poor, that's it. That was it. You know, like, we started off with our capital, you know, we didn't have loans. We didn't have investors. So everything sucked, but it was awesome. You know?
Do you feel, and before I go into my next question, do you feel that was part of not having investors? Do you feel that was part of not people knowing about what is mead? Because I think there's still a fair amount of people out there that still don't really truly understand or appreciate mead, especially what you guys put out.
It was both. There was nobody out there who really knew what it was. I mean, I think so. I took a page out of Sam Calzione's from Dogfish Heads, brewing up a business. It was dog-eared. It was dogfish eared, cover to cover. Boom. You can use that.
Making a sound bite there.
You're watching, Sam. Go ahead. So no, I had that book, Dogfish Eared, cover to cover, because it was essentially about bringing this kind of alcoholic beverage that people didn't really understand. Why did it cost so much? All that. And essentially he made me understand that it's about going out there and you're educating. You're just going to be educating nonstop. So that was a challenge in terms of how fast we could grow, because you had only the ability to educate so many people if you're the only salesperson. And then without that kind of market potential already being there, it wasn't the kind of thing that I ever thought an investor would be interested in doing. This was a thing that we only believed in because our homebrew club, we were just nerdy. Like, half our homebrew club would just be drinking mead at the meetings and just one-upping each other with these different recipes. It was fantastic. And Kerri is just like, this is great. And as I finally started getting good at making mead, she's like, nobody's doing this commercially. Like, this is so awesome. People just need to know about it. So you know, you have to have some kind of market potential or to be able to pitch an investor, or you're going to give up 90% of the business.
Do you feel in 2023 that you're still finding newcomers coming into the establishment? I'm guessing it's obviously slowed down since when you guys first opened, but you guys are still catching new people that are new to this idea of mead, right?
It's hard to know because I think a lot of the people that used to come in and they were new that maybe don't come around anymore are now buying it in the stores, like what Kerri was saying. And
But we still get
a lot of new people
in the tap room that have never had mead before, and they're not even sure what it is, but they heard good thing, or this place was cool, so they check it out. And
it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. I think people are going to be still learning about it after we're dead. Like
most people know, but there's always the new consumer to educate, though.
Our kids are going to be out there educating people.
Is there a mead that you guys really would like to put out there that you haven't had the opportunity because of the demand for some of the go-tos, like excuse me, like the cherry chipotle, for example, the apple pie? Is there one that is still that you guys are hiding, that you guys just have not done because of all the changes in demand and everything?
Yeah. Not just changes in demand. I just have too many ideas that I just like, there's just not enough mead drinkers out there. Like, I look at recipe development like I would be in the kitchen. So I was a latchkey kid, you come home and I'm hungry. Well, what's in the fridge? What's in the pantry? You just would cook based on whatever was there. So, I mean, I'm a pretty imaginative cook and mead maker. So like I have recipes on phones that are 3 upgrades ago that I never even got to transfer to the new phone because I already have too many new recipe ideas. It's like, it just doesn't end.
At what point do you expect your kids to start doing mead making? Or are they already helping in that regard?
I don't know.
If they're interested, I mean.
Yeah, like I don't want to
put them on the canning line, like some,
they got to come and do it on their own.
It's pretty easy. But...
Our youngest wants to be a storm chaser and a pro soccer player, and storm chaser.
I'm not sure Michigan is the right state for being.
For like spring break, like he wants to take time off school so we can, during tornado season, we can go down to Tornado Alley, Volkswagen camper, and just like follow the tornadoes. I'm like, I'm not going to go chasing tornadoes in an 84 camper.
Someone's watched Twister one too many times.
I tried to show him Twister. He was scared. Well, he has a respect for tornadoes. That's the thing. He's like 173 years old. He'll tell you. He's 173. He's an old soul. And it's weird. He's not like this fascinated kid, like trains like Thomas the Train with tornadoes, like Thomas the Tornado kind of thing. This is like he's teaching himself about high resolution Doppler. He subscribes on his own dime to these weather apps that show very precise numbers and pressure changes and stuff. Like, this kid's nuts.
But he's willing to work. So, I mean, he'll be here probably on the canning line, or like, if we open a kitchen, he wants to work in the kitchen.
That's true. So. Our oldest is like the mad scientist too. So like,
he could do lab
work. He's gonna start working in the lab. I'm gonna teach him how to use our spectrophotometer, how to do titrations, alcohol, ABV tests. So yeah.
Well, make sure to tell your son who wants to be a storm chaser that Nick from Better on Draft has a weather station in his backyard that reports to Weather Underground on the regular.
We don't report, but he does have a weather station that we hacked. Apparently, they also communicate over the 433 megahertz channel.
Oh, all right. Well, he one ups on me at least. So
Dad did the work.
So Ken, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, so there has been a lot of issues regarding supply chain, getting ingredients, and especially with Michigan, you guys, this is kind of how I learned about issues with ingredients when you had years ago the zombie killer and you had the cherry frost, the late frost for the cherries. Explain how you what's your audible situation? Like, how do you call an audible when something like that happens? Because obviously raising the prices is one thing, which you kind of have to do when the price is just so exorbitant for the cherries. But what are some of these other audibles that you might carry when you're like, oh, I want to make a black currant, or I want to make something with prickly pears and I just can't get them? but I have all this other stuff to use.
Yeah.
I mean,
Kerri handles
typically,
supply chain.
I've got a nice stockpile of vendors to choose from, and there's some overlap in a lot of the products.
You gotta also be flexible.
But yeah, it really just comes down to like, okay, we're not going to be able to get this specific cherry. What other cherry out there gives us the same flavor?
Or can I blend? Or,
can we blend? So it was really like,
it's kind of like the hop crops. Yeah. Sometimes the hops just not available on the beer side, or this year's a little different than last year. And like the brewers have it worse sometimes because, there's a lot more growth in the beer industry, I think. But yeah, I hear all the time about how they're like, oh yeah, we need to change the hop on this beer because
I mean, we'll change things if we have to, but not if it compromises the product. So we've been able to find like good products or good alternatives that give us the expected outcome. So we're still like.
That cherry year was not fun though.
No, that was horrible.
Well, so we got lucky.
There was more than one.
So here's the thing: sometimes, just dumb luck is all you need. And like, I think it was like 2012. Yeah. 2012 was a crazy year. So like we lost like 80% of the Michigan cherry crop, 70% of the apple crops. And everything was coming from, Northern Michigan at the time. And I remember we had just launched Zombie Killer the year before. Like we didn't do any session meads until basically Zombie Killer. And all of a sudden in 2011, we launched it. So imagine like we're trying to get an estimate. We're trying to give an estimate for how much cherry we'll need. Well, I had no idea. So I had given them this estimate, and apparently it was high enough that by the time like they knew the cherry crop was going to be just wiped out. I mean, it had been getting wiped out already. They called me up and they're like, so we still have this much cherry for you, but if you don't buy it by like July 1st, we're going to put it back out to the rest of the customers. I'm like, well, how much is there? I think it was like $20,000 in cherry at the time, which, for a company that just spent all this money on the bright tank and glycol and a counter pressure bottle filler and all that, that was a lot. But we sucked it up and we bought it. And that actually got us through the whole year because I had overestimated that badly. But with apples, we had to buy apples and have them shipped to a giant fruit press company in New Jersey that happened to also have giant freezers. So we shipped all these big IBC totes, food grade, sanitized, shipped them out to New Jersey. They had apples in from Argentina. They pressed them, put them in these totes, and then put them in these freezers. And every so often we'd have like 3 of these totes shipped in from New Jersey and they'd thaw along the way. And that's how we got through the Zombie Killer that year too.
You mentioned at that time that Zombie Killer was a mead. Has it, because when you look at it, I think it says it's a honey cherry cider.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
was originally made as a sizer. One of our distributors in North Carolina had a restaurant called Cherry Blossoms. They're like, hey, we want some kind of cherry mead. And they wanted in kegs. And I knew that a restaurant wasn't going to be spending the kind of money for a high gravity thing. So I'm like, oh, it's apple season. So I'll get some apple juice and do like a sizer and make like a session low gravity. Cause I wasn't doing this in mass yet, but I'm like, yeah, I'll put them in kegs and shake them up on CO2 for a while and ship them out. And apparently by the time it was done, the restaurant had gone out of business and the distributor didn't want it anymore. But so, it was a sizer. But as we're going into other markets, like New York, for example, is kind of like the big catalyst for all of this because they have some really weird wine laws. And to not have Zombie Killer because it was a wine, but they couldn't sell it in beer stores and stuff like that, it was going to cut us out of like the vast majority of the market. And we believe New York was going to be a big contender for us. And we're just like, well, let's just just fuck it. It's a cider now, So like, because a cider we could sell at a beer shop, but a sizer we couldn't. And then same thing with like Florida laws, and every state is just stupid. But cider is just, everybody's like, oh yeah, sure, cider's cool, but it could be the exact same thing with honey in the fermentation, and no, it's not okay. So, we already felt like we were rolling a ball uphill to when we started the company. Like, why make it worse? So,
For those that aren't necessarily understanding of a lot of the words you said, sizer, what is the definition of a sizer?
I wish we had like subtitles or something, Sizer is just a style of mead when honey and apple juice are mixed together
and fermented.
Yeah. So basically, I either can put the honey in the beginning, which we were already back sweetening with more honey later anyway. And or I could leave the honey out and just ferment the cider and still back sweeten with a little bit of honey and of course the cherry. They really didn't taste different. So yeah, we sold out.
Now,
hey, we got kids to feed, man.
for sure. What's your current top line, like the line that not your big beers, your episode 13s, your dragons are real, but what's everybody buying from you guys right now? Like, what are some of your big sellers?
Like our snobby ones?
Not snobby, just the most popular.
Zombie Killer is always number one.
Delight.
New Wave Lemonade has made huge strides.
Yacht Rock.
Oh my God, Yacht
Rock.
Yacht Rock.
I was like, God damn it, they're gonna want me to make this again. I know it.
Yeah.
I had some leftover. Yacht Rock is just like it sounds. It's fucking Yacht Rock, man. It's like perfect.
Tropical.
Pineapple, passion fruit, mango. 8% some percent. And I mean, when you drink it, you're just like, why am I not sitting on the beach right now? But it was like, here's the dirty little secret. Like the latchkey kid I am, I'm like, well, I got this mango that like the barrel started to bulge on us when we brought the juice in. So we're like, fuck, I'm not going to let this go bad. I'm going to fucking pitch yeast into this and just turn it into like a fucking straight up mango wine. So we just made this big old mango monstrosity, no purpose for it. And then I had this leftover Sunrise Bay, which is like a really low alcohol pineapple mead. And I had like some passion fruit. I was just like, and
it was magical. And we released it in the tap room, and it was number one on our list for the entire time it was available.
And I'm just trying to get rid of leftovers.
And Brad's like, he's like, damn it, I'm gonna have to make this again, aren't I? And I was like,
I don't know if I should be admitting all of this, but I think it's just my style to be like, yeah, I'm an open book. So
whatever. Well, when you just have some things, you just find an opportunity, or you don't want to waste.
I have enough creative inspiration. I don't feel
waste a good ingredient.
I'm not too self-conscious. Don't feel bad.
Okay.
Before I pass it to Dan, you guys have some beers or meads in your glasses. What are you two drinking?
Oh, well, it's Cinco de Mayo. So I started out with an agave lime. We've got that just released from last week in the tap room. But then I finished that and I'm on to our new Tabby Craft hard seltzer line. This one's perfect summer, and it's a watermelon, strawberry, and coriander hard seltzer.
Oh, it's my turn now.
Oh, yeah.
I am also drinking Tabby Craft seltzer. I resisted making seltzers for the longest fucking time. I needed some kind of inspiration or something that made it justified or whatever. This one is Paw Pineapple. It's literally that, Paw and pineapple. But these are like not typical bone dry seltzers, nor are they like super, super big jammy seltzers. They kind of are all inspired by a craft cocktail. With a little bit of a hint of little extra body and flavor than like you'd find in any of your mass-produced ones. And we get to use pictures of cats. Who wouldn't want that guy in their glass?
Obviously, if you guys are listening via the podcast, you can go check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/betterondraft, to see the cat video of Brad shaking the cat can in front of everyone.
That would be a thing.
Dan.
Yeah, real quick before I throw out my question here, I do want to say, Ken, I think we need to, when it comes to the video edit that ends up on YouTube and everywhere, you do need to do like the pop-up video feature. So like when he's talking about Sizer, it pops up and shows what it's talking about.
Oh,
I think that'd be a great idea.
Too, probably.
Yeah. Be a great idea. Or 8 mile, 8.5. What is 8 mile?
Danny DeVito.
You just gotta get like a Spirit Halloween costume that's like an M&M costume, and it's 8.5 mile instead of 8 mile.
I'm pretty sure that's just a hoodie and jeans. I don't really think you need a costume.
I think you were wearing that earlier today.
Yeah.
I don't think you have to go to Spirit Halloween Con for that.
Maybe some headphones, you know.
So my question is, back on episode 274, we had Chris Clark from Four Fires here. Talk to us a bit about what it was like to collaborate with those guys for the mead you currently have.
It was the worst. I mean, I think they're some of the worst people I've ever met in my life.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I'll be definitely cutting this out and throwing that on TikTok.
Yeah, we're trimming that one.
They're so phony. It's not even funny. I mean, they're not even using real mead. They're just buying like high fructose corn syrup and melting children's vitamins down.
Like the Flintstones ones?
No, it's France stones. They're not even using like real trademark licensed like vitamins. No, it's total bullshit. And I'm calling them out right now, right here on your show. No, I love those guys. I cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Okay, Rick.
Yeah, Rick James. I was wondering if I'm like outdating the audience here.
No, you're definitely not. Nope.
Good. So no, I mean, it was fun. We've done so many collabs over the years, but usually like we're always that kid that goes to the other place, the other house. Nobody really wants to come hang out at our house near 8 Mile in Detroit. So like we've brewed at Brewdog in Scotland and like Scar City and Funky Buddha and the brewery and all these places. And like, it was cool to have people come over to our place. They've just been super cool people. I think we were trying to do something really cool scientific wise, like getting into like super high gravity fermentation. And then we realized like, oh shit, we didn't really do anything different flavor wise. So it tastes very similar to this other thing we make. So I call them up one day, all 4 of them. And I individually said, yeah, we're just going to fuck with this. And don't worry about it. We got it, and we ended up trying like 15 different, like 50 milliliter samples of like herb infused this and that. And then we were going to figure out which ones we wanted to blend together. And at the end, we decided, since we've all been to parties at Michigan State, let's make jungle juice. And we literally mixed all the samples together and said, wow, that's what we want to do. So originally we wanted to use the Spice Girls as a theme and have all of them as like all of us basically as like, different Spice Girls, but with like our faces pasted on or something. And I think Kerri said no. But she's usually the smarter one. So I listened to her. And yeah. I don't know if that's a good story or not, but
that's the great story.
That's it. That's the story. But yeah, guys, no more fucking Frank Stone's vitamins, all right?
No more Frank Stone's vitamins, yeah. Ken, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thank you so much. So let's talk about the seltzers real quick. Tabby Craft, is that the name of it?
That is the brand.
Yeah.
Tabby Craft Hard Seltzer.
What is the launch flavors that you're offering?
We have the perfect summer watermelon, strawberry, and coriander. The pawpaw pineapple, what you saw here. So pawpaw pineapple and.
If you don't know pawpaw, it's like North America's only real native tropical fruit. It's crazy. It even grows in Michigan. Yeah.
I thought it was named after the city.
I was going to say, yeah, I thought it was like you did something with Pawpaw Brewing.
No, Pawpaw, Michigan's named after the pawpaw trees that line the river.
Oh.
Hey, Wikipedia that.
And we have one other one, two.
The Orange Basil Mule, MEWL.
Yeah. So with orange and basil and ginger and lime, so a mule style. And then the very first one we released was Icon Has Blueberry, and that was a blueberry hard seltzer.
I want to ask a question because there was a meadery that we had on, sadly no longer with us, called Recolt. And one of the things that Recolt did is that they kind of like seltzered their mead. So they took their base mead that they had, they added, water, threw it through like a carbonation utensil to create. And what I liked about it is because their mead was super sweet, it kind of leveled it out a little bit for me. Is that something that you guys have ever done before? Is that something you've ever heard of before me saying?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's an old technique that the big breweries use all the time. You've heard like, oh, don't drink this macro beer because they just water it down or whatever. There is actually some truth to that. Some of the big breweries should maximize their capacity and, and the tank space and all that. They'll brew a higher gravity beer. And then what they'll do is they'll adjust it to the exact ABV and, characteristics that they want. The problem though, when you do that is most of the time, like your water coming right out of from the city or whatever will have dissolved oxygen. And so one of the big challenges when you're doing something like that is to ensure that you do not have any dissolved oxygen because, you either can run into infections with like Acetobacter, or you can, even just have yeast start to re-ferment, or just oxidize the meat. We don't really do it unless we have to. Like there have been times where we were blending some batches together to get a common base and one was higher out, gravity. So it's a technique. But we got big enough tanks, so I'm not too worried about the capacity.
Now, I'm kind of curious about this too. Were they making hydromels when they were doing this?
They were.
Is that maybe what they were going for?
So they were taking their meads, so the meads that they're just selling right off of the tap. They were adding either tonic water or some type of.
Just water.
Oh, they were adding it out of the tap.
Yeah, so it'd be a higher alcohol, higher final sugar count. They dilute it down with water, carbonate it, and there's their session.
Yeah, so they were taking their mead.
Okay, they were doing it after the fact.
Yes. It was.
Okay. I think that's a lot of people do that. I think Four Fires does that.
I have yet to be to the actual facility itself. I've only had their mead here in Michigan.
Yeah, I mean it's a perfectly acceptable technique. You just have to. It's like harvesting yeast after you're done with the batch and using it again in the next batch. You can do that, but there's certain protocols you have to follow to be very sure that you're not going to infect or introduce something that you don't want. Same thing with this technique of taking a high gravity, high strength, high sugar content, diluting it down so you can take a 500 liter tank and get 2,000 liter yield out of it.
Now, I'm looking at the Spring Beer Festival coming up next week in Traverse City. That is May the 13th. And I see on number 33 a brewery called Barley Doodle.
Never heard of them.
Never heard of them. Okay, so I thought maybe that was you guys.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that is us.
I would, I'm just.
But I mean, nobody's ever heard of it because we don't have any product.
You're like, who?
Yeah. So this is inspired by our friend Bill and Michelle's dog Cooper. And I just kind of love the idea of a doodle. It's like, oh, let's take the temperament and intelligence of a poodle with the ability to drive a car like a Greyhound, or I was at a bus or something like that. But anyway, and we'll blend these two together to make our perfect hybrid dog. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of how I brew. Like I wanted the malty sweetness of an Oktoberfest with the eloquent blah blah blah. Just whatever BS I come up with. But I just thought it was kind of a funny name, and nobody argued with me. But we haven't released anything yet because, like I said, I want to make sure I know how to use that system first. I'm screwing around in the little like 1-barrel pilot system right now. Hitting up all my old brewer friends, be like, so how do you brew beer? And yeah, we'll see how it goes. We might have a release sometime this year, or we may not. I don't know.
So are you not bringing anything to the festival? Is that what you're saying?
I'm actually not. It's just going to be me. It's a one-man show. I'm going to be standing there drooling and probably picking my nose. I really wouldn't even go to our table if I were you. No, we're going to bring the WAB IPA and the WAB's Blonde Ale, because really that's all I've been really working on right now is just trying. Because if you can nail a good lager or, just get some foundation. Oh, and we're bringing one of the Tabby Craft. Right, right.
That will be there too.
Yeah.
Perfect. And when you hate their beer and spit it out, you can go across the aisleway to Dragon Mead to get some actual good beer by a mead maker.
Exactly.
See, I could do this too. I'm pretty good at throwing shade. We end every single show with a nice, friendly, fun question before we hand you guys off, because it's almost been an hour already. So I am going to throw it to Nick. Nick, what is your final question for Brad and Kerri here?
It's going to be my usual question, because everyone wants to know everyone's guilty pleasure when it comes to drinking beer. For both of you, your guilty pleasure when it comes to drinking beer. Examples: Hams Light. If there's Milwaukee's Best still floating around out there, you can say that. Each of you, what's your guilty pleasure go to?
See, I don't think I can do like a cheap beer because I don't enjoy that. It's guilty, but it's not really enjoyable.
I would say wine.
Wine. Yeah, wine. We drink a lot of wine. A lot of edibles.
Are you talking like $8 Chuck? Like
$8? Is it $8 now?
We're talking about Mad Dog.
Frenzia.
No, there is something. I just,
Twisted Tea.
Twisted Tea.
No, I've tried all of them. I mean, I'm an equal opportunity drinker, honestly. Like, it's almost like the question of like, what's your favorite? And I'm like, well, the one in front of me.
Do you miss the original Four Loko? Is that what you're telling us?
I fortunately came up with a clone recipe long ago, and I've never stopped drinking it. Four Loko for life, man. So, God, I don't know. What's your guilty pleasure? I don't feel guilty about any of it, though. I gotta like.
Well, then say it proudly. Then
there's not a beer that I'll drink and try to hide. I guess I'll say that.
I think all the brewers can agree, though. We all drink like High Life or
we do. We drink some cheap beers. I mean,
because you can only have so much pastry stuff.
I remember being at the Rochester Mills Brew Pub Oktoberfest, which is a huge Oktoberfest nobody's ever been, and seeing Brigham and Piepenbrock both drinking like High Life and koozies, even though they
were drinking Strohs.
Oh, was it Strohs?
It was Strohs. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like a guilty thing, but like I love Hocker Shore Weiss beer. That was what got me brewing beer to begin with. Love a good malty like Oktoberfest, like Marson.
We're not supposed to like the yellow fizzy, but we all do.
Everybody now is like, I want to be able to make a good lager.
Is a lager.
Yeah. Can I make a good lager? I can throw fruit and everything, but can I make a good lager?
Dan, what's your final question?
All right, Brad, you have to go against Ken in a game of Edward 40 hands, but you're using your mead. What mead are you using in this?
What is Edward 40 hands? I don't even know what that is.
I guess it would be bombers, since they throw stuff in 23s over there, or 750s. So we could do... We're going to duct tape 750s of Dragons Are Real, one for each hand, and then we both have to finish both bottles.
Okay. Yeah, and whoever finishes the one in each hand. But what mead are you picking to be able to beat Ken? And keep in mind, he's like, if you remember Bill Foster from the band show, Ken's going to down this quick. So what are you going to do to beat him?
To down it quick? I'll one up you in like awesomeness as well as beat you in speed by using our Don't Fear the Carolina Reaper mead, which is
he's done. Yeah.
Which is our Devil's Juice mead, which already has like a ton of peppers. With more cowbell. We actually put Carolina Reaper peppers in this one. So I'm going to drink that and still beat you in time. And I'm going to look
Ken
at
has to drink it too. That's the thing.
That's why he's going to be just drooling.
I thought this was like, you drink your thing, I'll drink mine.
No, you're picking what both of you are drinking. So
I told you I don't know what this game is.
Yeah, so Ken's done.
Yeah, I'm not a big pepper guy, so that's I've tried the was it Zombies Take Manhattan? I think is your Chipotle, or is it a different one?
No, it's a
well, Dragons Are Real.
Imperial.
Cherry Chipotle.
Zombies Take. Did you say Zombies Take Manhattan?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The Zombie State Manhattan is an Imperial Zombie Killer aged in rye whiskey barrels.
So it's the cherry chipotle. That's
Cherry
the one
chipotle.
that I had, and I was like, "Ooh, that's not a good one."
Get you in. So I'm like 2-upping you then with this Carolina Reaper one.
For sure. I'm very hit or miss when it comes to spice beers that have some type of like heat to it, like a pepper beer. Like Ring of Fire from Dragon Mead knocks me down. Like I can't touch it.
I can imagine they named it for another reason.
But there is, I see what you did there. Dragon Tracks. I think I had, what was the ghost pepper Dragon Tracks from Witch's Hat, and I could drink that, and that was delicious. So
see, a lot of these really spicy ones are also really flavorful too. So like
They are.
a lot of them, if you do them right, you get a lot of fruit character from the pepper.
Yeah, when you add these higher, I can't even think of what the capsaicin peppers to beer, it works out really. Yeah, Scoville. Thank you. The Scoville level. Ken, if you remember at the Cask Ale Festival, someone had a Carolina Reaper stout. I think it was Ellison, and you actually enjoyed it, and it was pretty hot, but you actually thought it was pretty good.
Balance is key.
yes.
Yep.
Yes, for sure. So my final question is very simple. 2028 is going to be your 20th anniversary. I know it's 5 years away, but are we going to expect Ferndale Palooza 2.0?
God, no. No.
I mean, I'm not going to say never, but that was really
This is not the right kind of
hard.
state to do an event like that.
Yeah.
Like if we were in Florida or Ohio or anywhere else where the state would allow a producer such as ourselves to host a festival like that without going through this totally convoluted, batshit crazy runaround through a nonprofit and all that crap, then we'd totally do it. Because we love doing these fests where we meet amazing people from all over the world. And I'd love to bring them in again. We had so much fun taking them on a bus tour around Detroit, showing them the history of this town and just why we love it here. But it was a pain in the ass to put that together. Maybe if Elon Musk can get us to Mars, it'll be easier to host one there.
What is a law that you think, before we can go, because I'm curious, because I've always been interested in the laws of Michigan, the red tape, and what make things just overly complicated to do something so simple. What is the law or laws that you could change to make Ferndale Palooza 2.0 happen?
In Michigan, there is a type of license that the brewers have called a brew pub. Brew pubs are allowed to purchase alcohol made by other suppliers through wholesalers or just direct distribution or whatever, and sell them on their own property. If the state of Michigan were to allow even a temporary festival type license, which was similar to what a brew pub can do for these like one-time events or something like that, they don't even have to change a law. They just have to make a specific provision for these types of events. That's it.
I guess my question is, what stops you from doing it at a different address?
It's about, you still have to have a liquor license. You have to have a license to buy and sell alcohol to the consumer.
Okay.
You have to have alcohol, like liquor liability insurance. You have to and then if we want to associate our name with it, that gets into this whole thing that's, you want to talk about prohibition laws mandating a 3-tier system and keeping Bee Nectar away from the retail level and providing value. I mean, the rabbit hole is very, very deep. It's not fun.
We've obviously been doing the show for 7.5 years now. And laws, issues, making sure we say the same things, especially for our March Draftist competition, because we give away a keg of beer, but we don't give it away. We buy it, and the first 144 brand new friends can get a pint bought by us. We're very, very specific, but there's a lot of things that I'm hoping over the next few years, now that kind of COVID's done and everyone's kind of not being reactive, that we can start being proactive again in the craft beer community and get a lot of these laws, especially these archaic liquor laws, done. Kerri and Brad, you guys, people can buy your mead cider all online. What's the website? Give me some deets about what we can do to find you.
Beanectar.com.
Shop.beanectar.com for if you want it delivered to you. Beanectar.com's got our tap room hours and online menu there. So you can do an online order and come pick it up at the tap room, or just, come in and see us because we're fun to hang out with sometimes.
At the famous 8.5 mile in Ferndale. Kerri and Brad, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. The Michigan Beer Series of Better on Draft. Find us on all of our social medias, Better on Draft on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Untapped, Twitch. Everything is at Better on Draft. And no matter what you think of your beer, or I guess mead and cider, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Thank you.